Hello everybody, hope you're doing marvelously well. We are back with another Fact Friday. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed. You can also hit the notification bell and you'll be notified when we have a new video. We also have a new improved producelikeapro.com academy where you can go and join quite a few other like-minded people who are incredibly supportive. It's a wonderful community, so please check that out. Okay, let's get started with Frequently Asked Questions Friday. Do you ever listen to tracks, completely think through a mix, and then execute it, knowing exactly how it will turn out? Or do you start working and let the mix evolve and see where it takes you? That's a really marvelous question. Shelly Yakis was here a couple of days ago, and he and I were talking about exactly the same thing. And we realized that the only way to answer that is there already a mix, and is there already maybe just a rough mix? The problem is when you're given, or the reality is, I should say, when you're given maybe 100 tracks that are all at zero, not panned around, and you play the mix back of all of these tracks just generically output, it's very, very hard to understand what you would do with it. So in that instance, you tend to start, grouping things together, like the drums and then the bass inputs and then the guitars, finding the rhythms, finding the leads, finding the keys, finding any strings, keys could be pianos, could be Wurlitzers, could be pads, could be synthesizers, there could be programming, percussion, background vocals, lead vocals, you name it. The point is you're actually going to have to get stuck into the song and start collecting it together, panning it, building a very, very rough mix yourself before you can even really hear the song. So it's a double-edged sword. What I mean then is if you've got a rough mix or a previous mix that somebody else has got, it's actually fairly easy after you've been doing this for a while to hear how you could make it better. You can hear it and like something in that other person's mix and want to bring it out more. You start to get more of a vision when somebody else has already given you their vision. However, when you've got all those multi-tracks just all at zero, all out the front, you're going to start getting in and rough mixing it at least on a peripheral level at first before you can really make that decision. However, you're already in the song. By already being in the song, you'll start to lay out a roadmap about how to make it great. So the answer is really the same. If the tracks are presented in a way, either in a mix or in a rough state that allows me to hear the song at least to somewhat of its potential, then I can start mixing with a clear vision. If it's not laid out in that way and it's just chaotic, then I have to start mixing it and building a rough mix myself to get that vision. So that's really the answer is how have the tracks been provided to you? These days, quite often, mixers get tracks that have all of the plugins already on them, all of the automation moves already on them. And the direction is very, very solidified. That also helps me. I either go, yep, love it, I know how to make it better, or I go, oh dear, don't like this, I know how to make it better. Either way, I've got a very clear idea of what I can do if there's been some time and energy put into the presentation of the song. So really for me, it's that. Good rough mix, good previous mix. I can pretty much have an idea of where I'm going to go from that and how I want to complete it. Roughly laid out tracks with no organization, no panning, no volume controls, nothing, then I have to start mixing it to find out how to mix it. Does that make sense? Okay, here's the next one. How do you deal with songs you've received for mixing that you don't like or even can't stand? Do you have methods for not bothering or simply refuse to mix? I think the honest answer to that question is I don't mix anything that I don't think I personally could make better. that I could improve, that I could bring my best self to. And the way to avoid getting sent a whole bunch of multitracks is to obviously, first of all, hear at least an MP3. So if an artist or a producer or another engineer or a fellow mixer wants you to mix a song, listen to it. Have them send it to you. If you don't think you can bring something to it that's going to make it amazing and make it better still, then don't mix it. I don't think it's a case of, me deciding whether I'm too good for something. I don't think this song is good. I think the decision has to be not made on the genre of the music or the quality of what we impart, what we believe is the song. We have to listen to it and go, can I make this great? If I don't think I can improve it, then I won't do it. If somebody sends me a rock song, which I can, I've done in my sleep, I'm joking, but I've mixed a ton of rock stuff. If I don't think I can make it better, I don't think I'm the right person for the job, that's when I say, no, I don't think it's something I can make better. I think that is a professional way of dealing with an artist, a producer, a fellow mixer, engineer, even a label. You don't have to do everything. If you don't believe that you can take a song by an artist and make it 10 times better and take it to the next level, then don't work on it. I think that is the most important thing, regardless of genre, because I personally like everything. Create a good, professional set of boundaries where you listen to the song first before you make a decision. Then, if you don't think you're right for it and you don't think you can make it great, move on. Do you ever purposefully limit yourself in the studio, regardless of the stuff you have available? If you do, is the music better, worse, or just different? What a marvelous question. Yes and no. I think there's 2 or 3 different criteria for that. If I'm moving quickly, out of necessity, I'll probably go for old favorites. Patched in, ready to go things, because I don't have a huge amount of time to experiment. When I'm in that situation, yes, just boom, start recording, off you go. So that is one limitation that I put on myself. I go to the old favorites, plug in the mic, plug in the mic pre and the compressor that I know that will work, and just start recording. We do that all the time. Frankly, I can lean over and adjust a couple of compression settings or a bit of gain and change the sound quite dramatically anyway. I can add a bit of EQ. Sometimes you don't need a lot of equipment to change things fairly drastically. That's an important thing. So that is one thing I put on myself, one limitation. Then as far as creatively limiting myself, that can be called on choices, not necessarily of equipment, but choices of instruments. So maybe saying, we're only going to do this song using one main melody/rhythm instrument, i.e. a piano or an acoustic guitar. Maybe that's what drives the song. Maybe that's inherently what the vocal is built around. I feel like production choices like that can be absolutely huge. Knowing that it's going to be a piano-driven song or an acoustic guitar-driven song right from the get-go means that when I want to add 1 or 2 additional instruments, say maybe beyond a bass guitar and drums, then I'm adding something super special. Maybe I want to put horns on there, so I'll work on an amazing horn arrangement. That is a more likely way that I will limit myself over the gear. I feel like for me, the gear is almost second nature now. I know when I hear something, I know what to reach for and plug in, and we're usually fairly close to getting the sound very, very quickly. That is why I have Produced Like a Pro. I want to impart that kind of information. This is something I've learned. It's acquired knowledge. So I'm sort of limited in scope in some ways, and then in other ways, not at all. If I want to do something super experimental, that's fun too. I have tube mic pre's that if I want to overdrive and do fun stuff like that, we'll do it as well as using, a 1073 or a 312. All of these things are available at our fingertips, but they don't really take long to patch in. They don't take long to try. It's all about acquired knowledge, about working a lot, working frequently, and learning lots of different techniques. How do you choose what slope to use for high-pass filters? I always go and high-pass where I think is effective. Well, for instance, if I've got a bass guitar, and I want it to really have some super, super tight lows. So my kick drum is shelved around about 40 to 60 hertz. So that's where the thump is. It might be pointed somewhere about 60, but it's also pulling up some 40 and a little bit of 80. Now, but the center of it is at 60. Now, when I come to do my bass guitar, I might high pass at 60 gently, but I'll probably put a bass boost after that, typically something like an R bass, which I think you will agree is pretty darn amazing sounding, an R bass after the high pass filter. So why would I do that? So what I'm doing is I'm using a fairly gentle slope at around about 60 on the bass guitar, going into an 80 boost, which is also going to like bring up some of that lower lows. Now, if after that, it's blurred too much with the kick, I might use a second high pass, maybe not quite 60, maybe a little bit lower, maybe about 40 or 50, probably about 50. Then I come to listen to my mix and I say to myself, how's that feeling? If there's good definition in the kick coming up underneath, and then there's good low end on the bass pumping consistently, then I'm done. But if it's starting to be a bit too blurred there and the bass is a little bit too floppy, I won't change my high pass at the end, but I might take that slope and make it a bit more aggressive. So that's the answer to the question. The answer is start with like maybe a 6 dB per octave slope, which is something that looks a little bit like that. It's not working. Maybe go 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You know, before you get to like 24 dB per octave where it's almost like this, just start with something gentle and then keep increasing it. And after a while, you'll start finding where it is. I usually keep things gentle. I don't use high passing massively aggressively. I use it to shape the low end. So on electric guitars, I might want 150 or 200 down there to be really, really tough. So I might high pass at 150, but it's going to be a very gentle slope. So yes, of course, there's still 100. There's still 80 down there in the guitars. I don't want to lose it entirely, but I'm using a gentle slope. That's the effective way of using high passing. It is taming the low end, not removing it entirely. It's like you're still keeping lows and highs on your low and high pass filters in there. You're just taming them. You're not removing them entirely. There might be instances where you need to. Maybe there's too much build up at 150, to 200. So maybe you do have to get a bit more aggressive on other instruments that are crossing over in those places. But start off with gentle slopes and then increase them to clean up the low end. When mixing down a multi-track song recorded at 24-bit 96K, what is the best method to follow? It's a great question. The best answer to this is a question. Are you using an external mastering engineer? Because if you are using an external mastering engineer, Michael Romanowski said a couple of months ago, he said he likes to receive the files at the highest bit rate and the highest sample rate possible. So maintain everything at 24-bit and 96K. That way your mastering engineer, who is surrounded by incredibly expensive hardware, will save that down to 44.1 16-bit or 48.24 or whatever needs to be. That is the best method. Now, if you're mastering it yourself, save it down to 24-bit 96K, open up a 24-bit 96K session, bring the files in, master it in a separate session, and then save that to 44.1 16-bit. Basically, keep it at the highest possible resolution you can for the longest possible time. That's the answer to the question for me. If Warren was just starting out and had less than $500 to spend on the best microphone he could find, what would he choose? Anything of Lewitt's at that price at $500 or less. I'm just going to let you into a very small little secret. There is a great new service coming out that's being done by some friends of ours, and they are taking microphones and they are testing them completely and utterly impartially. And all I can say to you is everything I believe about microphones that's out there is going to be supported by this wonderful new service. So I can stand by Lewitt. I bought my first Lewitt, a pair of LCT 550s. There's still one sitting there plugged down there. And they have almost zero noise. They're consistent. We've never had one break down, and we've had bleeding tons of them. I can stand behind it because we use it every day. And like I said, impartial people have a tendency to agree with me. So that's really good as well. So, you know, I don't make a commission from it. I probably should, but everybody's laughing. But my job here is to give you information to help you make great music. There are other pieces of equipment, and I don't want to just make it about those pieces of equipment, but the fact that we can do that and we can help people make music at a low budget, but make great music is really, really important to me. It's really, really great. Wonderful to see you here. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Oh, and don't forget to check out producelikeapro.com. The new academy is amazing.